Welcome to Death is My Life podcast. I'm your host, Jolene, and I'm here with Stephen Laughlin for part two because I deleted part one. Thank you, Stephen, for being here again.
I will not press the delete button. You can
Oh,
just blame it
God.
on me and no one would know the
I
difference.
know, I know.
That's Steven. He couldn't stop himself. He says, "What's this red button?" And he pressed it.
Abort mission. Yeah, so Stephen is an old-time family friend. He's known my dad for probably, what, you tell us, how many years?
Let's see. Wow, that's hard math. 78? No, I mean 68? 78.
68
That's older
years.
than me. No, I'm sorry. I'm going backwards. I'm counting. It's 58 years.
58 years.
There you go.
Good. That's a good amount of time.
It's been a couple of days, as it were. Well, a couple
Yes,
of minutes.
oh, a
That's
couple
if you know
minutes.
me.
You probably know him better than I do.
It's well, I knew him before you, so that was.
Yeah.
I know the older Rick Havern,
You know the stuff he won't tell us.
or I got well, any take, just call me up. Any details you want to
Easier
clarify.
said than done. Okay, so Steven had to come on my podcast after finding out that I spoke with Jeff. So if you haven't listened yet, listen in to Show Me the Evidence with Jeffrey Stein, and he'll tell you about his belief structure, which is, he's still looking. And apparently he got you into your beliefs, right?
Well, it's not like they weren't there at all, but it's certainly like he definitely opened my eyes to looking at things a certain way.
Yeah.
And thereafter, I grew into essentially you could call it a well, reality based. It's a combination of what religions teach and science.
Sure.
And it's I wouldn't actually know what to call it. I should think of a name I could give it. It's reality based. That's a way of looking at it. That's the way I think of it anyways. It may not have anything to do
Mhm.
with reality. So after I die, it's like, hey, Steve, that picture you had of the way things work? Yeah, well, it's all wrong. Yeah. But Jeffrey's probably going to hear that. There's a famous scientist that made a statement and basically said that, you know, if you're going to choose between believing in God and not believing in God, why not just believe in him? Like what bad could it do you? Because if you
Mhm.
do believe in him and then you die and God's there, you're fine. And if you
Yeah.
don't believe in him and you die and God's there, you're screwed. So
Yes.
I think his terminology was a little bit more elegant than mine, but
Yeah. Well, see,
I just learned today that about the reality of Einstein's theory of relativity, which is energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. So basically, what he's saying is that pretty much nothing exists. This is just a form of energy. All matter is a form of energy. So I thought about that today and I said, if that's true, then the conversion of matter to energy in the form of heat and light in a star must use up matter. So I looked it up today and it's actually true. So our sun, which is a kind of a smallish star, loses 350,000 tons a second. Was it a second or a day? It's one of the two. Maybe it's a day. So
hmm
every day, let's say, it loses
hmm
350,000 tons of weight, which it turns into light,
hmm
basically.
hmm
And so that basically says that, well, Einstein must have been right then. Energy equals mass. It's just the same thing. And then we're here. Jeffrey's into the science end of the we're here, which is stuff that you can prove using, or at least stuff that you can theorize about using math, basically. And there aren't any tools that can measure spirituality that we know about other than the ones that they had in Ghostbusters. So if
Hmm.
I could get my hands on that, the PK meter, man, that'll tell you if there's spiritual energy. We don't
I
have,
know.
yeah, got to call up Bill Murray. But
Oh, I wish. He's on my list.
yeah, right. He would probably make an interesting podcast.
Yeah.
But if you combine things that you've learned in religion, not combine them, if you think about them in terms of trying to match them up with reality, the physical world, there's a whole bunch of points where they definitely cross. One of the most striking ones I thought was the description of God creating everything.
Hmm.
So it's actually, I don't even remember what it is, but there's an order, a sequence of what God did to create the universe. And on the seventh day, he rested. So on day one, he did this. On day two, he did this. On day three,
Hmm.
blah, blah, blah. So that sequence matches up the actual sequence of what they postulate to be what happened after the Big Bang. Oh, the first one is let there be light. So the first physical thing that coalesced in the universe as we know it was light. So there was a big bang, and then it was just too much energy and whatever for anything, and I think it had to cool down or something in order to just to turn into light, and then it kept cooling and turning into different things until finally it cooled enough to coalesce into hydrogen atoms. And then hydrogen atoms started to form clouds, and those clouds condensed because of gravity. See, we're already into this where scientists talk about this stuff and they use this terminology. It's like, okay, so after the Big Bang, the blah, blah, blah happened, and then it got up to a point where there were clouds of hydrogen gas around, and then they coalesced because of gravity. Okay, that's nice. What's gravity? Like, who
Yeah.
says? You know what I mean? Like, they just take it for granted that the laws of physics were there and working. Where the laws of physics come from? It's like that chicken and egg thing, except it's way more complicated. So it all had to come from somewhere. There's rules that make everything work the way that they do. So when you combine oxygen and hydrogen, you get water. Well, actually, it's two hydrogens, right? H2O, yeah, and one oxygen that makes water. Because hydrogen and oxygen know, in quotation marks, that that's what they do. And that's what it does, period. And, you know, and there's, what would you call it? Encyclopedias full of other rules like that, that this and this makes this, and this makes this, and there's gravity that just exists, and on to describe the physical world. And even at that level, as far as I'm concerned, as you're going through that stuff and those descriptions and talking about those rules, even you're acknowledging that something made those rules in the first place.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's already at that point, it's difficult for me to extract the physical reality as we know it of the universe from some other thing that encompasses more than just the physical reality of the universe. And Jeff is like the guy that started me off on that. It was kind of a shock to me to hear him. It was a few years ago, and we went to their house, and I started to talk about something that we had had a conversation about 50 years ago, and he was vehemently against it. And I was like, "What, Jeff? What are you talking about? You're the guy who started me off on this." And he's turned into this. No, it's just science. It's cause and effect and random happenstance things that happen, and as you pile random event on random event, and you end up here, basically.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I totally agree with all those random events piling up onto each other, but there's also more than just random stuff, and that's really demonstrated just in the actual laws of physics. If stuff does work this way, then there must be a reason that stuff works this way. There is nothing at all to say that there has to be gravity in the first place, except that, well, you could say that somebody decided that that's the way it was going to work, or something along those lines. It's certainly more of a question to get there to me, but I don't know what the answer is. I mean, there's no way in the world I can say, no, there's no God. I have no idea. It makes sense to me that there would be something there, but you heard me say it in that erased recording that I think George Lucas got closer than anybody else in describing the way that I see things, which is that there's a force out there.
Hmm.
And it's it may, for all I know, be completely interwoven and married to the physical world,
Hmm.
or it may be a separate thing that can join with the physical world if it feels like it, or it may be a product of the physical world, or who knows? I don't know what the answer is, but
Hmm.
um, like the thing that we said before, you know it. You work in places like that where there is a point when someone dies where they die. So they're not alive anymore. They're not a living organism starting at that point. They are now stuff. The stuff that they were made out of as a body, all that stuff is still there, but now it's no longer alive. Okay, what happened? The heart stopped or whatever the answer is from a doctor, but really what happened is the life force left their body, which is pretty simple. And for the fact that try as they might, no one's ever been able to replicate even the simplest beginnings of a chain of stuff that might turn into a living thing on its own. You know what I mean? On its own,
Hmm.
meaning you hit something with a lightning bolt or whatever it needs to get it jump started. And
Hmm.
they have all these theories about how life started, but they're all just theories, and no one really knows, even at this point. So it's easy for me to think in terms of what I like. I was just about to say the fact that there
That
is
too.
a spirit world, basically, not in the way that people would conventionally think about it. Like, I'm not expecting to see my mother anytime because she died, and she's no longer here. I have memories of her, but she's gone into the next plane, whatever that is. And where was I going with that?
I don't know, but since you lost your train of thought, can I ask a question?
Okay.
So the next or alternative plane, wherever that life force goes when it leaves the body, do you think they can cross over? Do you think that they can communicate with us? We can communicate with them? Anything like that? Any cross
It's
communication?
definitely possible. And I would only say that because of this thing that I know about. I wish I knew more about it. I should look it up. There was a kid, I guess this is maybe 15 years ago at this point. So this kid must be like 17, 20, who knows, somewhere around there. When he was 2, he began having dreams, and he was dreaming of being a pilot of a Corsair, which is a World War II American fighter plane that flew off of aircraft carriers. And he knew the name of his wingman. He knew his own name and the name of his wingman and the type of plane that he flew. And I think he knew the
At
number of his
two?
plane, and he knew the name of the aircraft carrier that he was flying off. Now, this
Wow.
is a guy that
Hmm.
took off from the carrier one day and disappeared.
Hmm.
They never saw him again. And this kid correctly named a 2-year-old, named all this stuff about this guy's point in time there, like when he was on the
Yeah.
aircraft carrier as a pilot of that specific plane.
Oh.
And then they started recording all this stuff, and it became a big thing. It was well known. It's probably on YouTube.
Hmm.
And then apparently by the time he was maybe three or so, it stopped happening, and he forgot
Hmm.
all about it. He had no
Hmm.
memory of any of that stuff happening. But his parents
Crazy.
had recorded it. I'm pretty sure that they actually made like videos and whatnot.
Oh,
And
man, cool.
yeah, there must be something on YouTube about it. It was a really famous thing. And that one thing made it very easy for me to understand how what I think happens might have happened. And
Hmm.
the thing that I think, what I was talking about, combining the physical world and the spiritual world, is basically this. Everybody thinks of their brain as the place where you actually do thinking. They think of the brain as this magical thing that thinks and dreams and does whatever. It's just goo like the rest of you. I think really that it's just a switchboard. It's a very complicated one. And there's other stuff in there. There's probably hard drives and whatnot to, like what's a memory? Try to dig that one up. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
recorded in goo, and you can record a memory. It's not you can remember everything about some
Hmm.
particular event, the smell, you know what I
Hmm.
mean, the temperature
Hmm.
that it was, all this information that you can record in your memories. And where are they recorded? And it occurred to me one day that it's possible that they're recorded in every physical thing that you're made of rather than just your brain. In other words, that they get recorded into, let's say, every atom in your body. And
Yes.
there are more atoms in your body than God, way, way, way more than the stars in the Milky Way galaxy. I think somebody had done the numbers, and I think it turned out to be more atoms in your body than all the stars that they know about in the universe.
Yeah.
And which is 10 to the God knows what power, with like a 500 zeros after it. And each one of those things is a possible recording device in the real
Hmm.
world. This is something they've also just recently tested. I don't know the details of this either.
Hmm.
I should have been more ready for this. But somebody was able to record information into an atom or a molecule. I can't remember which it was, but it was on an atomic level and
Hmm.
retrieve the information. So they could record it and retrieve it. That's the big important thing, meaning they know that it recorded the information the way that they thought it did because they could get
Hmm.
it back out. And so if that's true, that means that it's actually possible for an atom to record information. And as far as we know, your atom can record every second of your life, every atom in your body. And then when you die, the life force leaves you, but all that stuff is still recorded. It's like if you have a
Hmm.
computer and you've put a bunch of movies and stuff on the hard drive and you unplug the computer. It's no longer working as a computer. There's no power in it, but
Hmm.
all that stuff is still on the hard drive, right?
Yes.
If
Okay, this
you,
makes total sense to me because I use and study homeopathy. And
yeah.
so that is like, for anybody who doesn't know, like I used to think it was just like natural medicine, but it's like totally different. It's its own thing. And they're like little tiny, tiny little sugar balls basically, but they're imprinted with the vibration of something. So like one of the really popular ones is arnica. So they get the arnica flower and however they put a little tiny arnica flower in some water and then they shake, 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 shake the water and like it can spread to billions, you know.
Oh,
So the
that's the
one little
thing
tiny
where
granule.
as they make it into the correct potency to use,
Hmm.
it's because they keep diluting it, right?
They dilute it, yeah, and the more they dilute it, almost the more potent it gets, and it's the
Right.
energetic imprint. So our like scientific microscopes can't even see any trace of whatever's left. Like apis for is like from a bee, but there's no actual bee that we can see, but it's the vibration of it. So that totally makes sense, like in every little atom. And that's why, like, so when we put it in our bodies, we're receiving that energetic imprint from that tiny, tiny, tiny little portion of an atom that was diluted in water
Yeah.
a million times at least. Yeah.
Yeah, when I first heard about that, it kind of blew my mind. I had no idea that that's the way it worked, but you had to keep diluting the thing to make it stronger. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that makes no sense at all.
Yeah. They're like, okay, give the kids and pregnant women 200 and you take 30. And I'm like, whoa. And they're like, no, I know. It's more diluted, but I know. Yeah. So that just got me thinking to what you were saying. So every single atom in your body. Yeah. And when they're making those, they can scoop something that's been dead and it still has the energetic vibration.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, as basically a recording
Yeah.
or
Like a tree or whatever they use.
yeah, recording not meaning a
Hmm.
video or something, but meaning data that's been recorded, little like a
Hmm.
hard drive, basically.
Yeah.
If you have a hard drive in your hand, it's full of all this data that could be whatever. It's a movie or it's a song or it's paper you wrote, and it's still just all
Hmm.
zeros and ones on this hard drive until you read it with the correct app. It's just going to be a bunch of zeros and ones on a hard drive. It's kind of meaningless to
Hmm.
without the interpreter. That's that's not really what I'm talking about, but it's I'm acknowledging the basis of what we're talking about, I guess. But yeah, so if you imagine that that's actually a reality that you record all of the information of your own life into every atom that's in your body. So when you die, those are the atoms that have the imprint of the recording of all of the information because they were there right up to the end. And then your body gets put back into the earth or burned or whatever they do with it. I'm not really sure about cremation, but it makes more sense if things are done the natural way, in quotation marks, meaning people didn't burn up their bodies and cremate them when they're animals. You know what I mean? Animal dies, it just drops on the ground and then becomes
Hmm.
part of the surrounding stuff again.
Hmm. Yeah. Well,
It's that.
human composting is gaining in popularity.
Wow, these delicious carrots. What'd you make them in? My mother.
The
She
gift
died
that never
2 years.
stops giving.
Yeah, my father makes particularly good tomatoes.
Oh, my dad
So
would just love that. Every meal is with dad.
there's a horror movie in here somewhere. So, anyways, back to the I it's funny that I'm the guy who's steering us back to the conversation. That's a new thing.
You know.
I didn't know that I had the ability. I'm trying to steer us back to it, but I don't know what we were talking about. So,
I know. Well, we have to eventually get to where we're going. So.
yeah, exactly. So actually, that's that. And the funny thing is, all this belief that I have at this point, it's more or less akin to the belief that you might get about chemistry if you took chemistry courses all through college and graduated with a degree in chemistry. At that point, you know all this stuff about chemistry, but you could call it a belief in chemistry, and you know what I mean? It's information that you've assembled and that you do believe in it. Like you couldn't be a chemist if you didn't believe in chemistry. So I
Hmm.
guess it is kind of the same thing.
I have
So
in
as time went
chemistry.
by and I all this stuff gelled into what it is in my mind now, which was basically there is the physical world and it works the way that it works. And there's a force, like in Star Wars, that you can probably access like they did in Star Wars, but that's not really the point of the force in my reality. The point is that it's the thing that animates us all, which is pretty much what they say, anyways. So they're just claiming that Jedi Knights can like get their hands on that and do stuff with it.
Mhm.
I'm not sure that we'll ever get that far before we blow ourselves up, but it's probably a possibility that you could do it. But first, you would need some kind of tools to measure it with, which is what we don't have, which is why a lot of scientists don't believe in some kind of spiritual force. They have nothing to
Mhm.
measure it with
Mhm.
and no tool to theorize about it. Like math
Mhm.
is what they use to do
Sure.
theories about the physical world. And so it's going to take more than that for them. And that's, I mean, that's probably why Jeffrey got away from it, because he's heavily into the scientific end. And I guess it's easier or more comfortable, or I mean, notice that I'm not saying, well, it's what he believes in, because he's got a firm conviction of it. To me, it's like, no, it's the easy thing for him to do. So it's like, just skip over that spirituality stuff. But not before I actually had this stuff gelled in my head, I also, not also, it was before I had it, I had the view of death that I have now. I must be the only person that I know that has absolutely no fear of death. I might get one if I sat and contemplated death for a while. You know what I mean? Like tr tried to drill into it and actually access what it really means that I do not wake up tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But I don't do that kind of stuff. I don't think I'd be able to focus on it for that long. That could be why I don't have a fear of death, because I just can't like wrap my mind around it. So I just go on to the next thing. But everybody, you die. Everybody dies. There's nothing to be afraid of, because it's what happens to literally every single person since the beginning of time. So it's nothing new here. You know, it's like it's the sequence of things. So that's one of the things in religions, in the Catholic religion, they say, from dust you come, to dust you shall return. And when they made that saying up, I'm pretty sure they had no concept of what atoms were. And the scientific reality, which is you cannot create or destroy matter. You can change it, but you can't just
Mhm.
destroy it. You can't make it disappear, or whatever the term that they would use other than destroy. So all these atoms that are in your body have not the atoms, but the parts that make them. So if you dig down a little deeper into an atom, and they theorize that each proton and neutron are made of three quarks. So, and I don't know who came up with that, but it's another one of those things, is like there's three quarks in every proton and neutron. So where'd they come up with that trilogy of, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost? The three parts that make something up. There's all these interlacing things between religion and science. Like I said before, that the sequence of things that God did to create the universe, that is the sequence that the scientists say that it happened in.
Yeah, and they could have had no way to know that or study it
Exactly.
back
Like,
then. Okay,
where did
yeah.
they find that information out in order to
Mhm.
write that sequence down in the Bible 2,000 years ago?
Yeah, no, I've never made that connection. That's a really good point.
It's kind of wacky that, so somebody had some kind of knowledge about something,
Yeah.
maybe before they were
Yeah.
all zoned out by TVs and stuff. People were
Hmm.
actually able to think of things.
So,
That could be what
do
it is.
you know the Bible well, or do you follow the Bible? Well, you grew up Catholic, so I'm sure you
No,
have a.
I actually know the Bible as well as some other much more famous figures than I, who claim to know the Bible and actually don't know any of it. I do know one or two Bible passages. That makes me a leg up on said personages.
Sure, okay. So you follow your own spiritual beliefs because they make sense to you.
Basically, I mean, I was raised
Mhm.
Catholic,
Excuse me.
which I didn't run away from it, but I lost interest in it somewhere around sixth grade. And it all
Hmm.
had to do with realizing there was the thing that I remember the most was I used to be in the choir, so I went to church every week. And there was this family, and I knew the father like beat the kids, and I saw them there in the front row in church with the father, kneeling there with his hands clasped and his eyes closed, praying and looking all religious. And I knew he beat his kids, and I was like,
Ah,
this picture doesn't match up here. So I just stopped going to church. I thought it was fake,
yeah,
basically. Like there's a guy
yeah.
right in front of me being fake about this.
My goodness.
So I lost that interest and never got it back. But that's just
Hmm.
church. That has nothing to do really with spirituality.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah. Well, okay. So when I asked earlier if you believe that the planes could cross communicate, I know that you've told me some interesting ghost stories. So what do you make of those? And
which
can you tell us
ones?
can you read say
Oh, you're going in and out
how?
there.
Oh no.
Now you're back.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Weird. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you told me a few ghost stories, maybe one staircase, but
Oh
could
yeah,
you
that was
retell us one of your most extreme ghost stories and then
well, that was my
how you
sister.
think that
Like
communication is happening?
I I wasn't there for that, but I was certainly apprised of it when we got back where we lived in this house on Long Island. It's still there. I went to look at it in Google
Ooh.
Earth. It's right next to the railroad
Oh,
tracks in Cold Spring Harbor on Long Island. And as it turned out, the
hmm.
house was over 100 years old when we lived there in the 1980s. And it
Wow.
was a tannery during the Civil
Um,
War. And then I don't know what it was after that, but I know it was a tannery during the Civil War. So it was there a really long time. And down in the basement, it was a dirt floor in the basement, and there were these two grave-sized depressions in the dirt floor in two different locations that there weren't, there was no sewer under there or anything. There were just grave-sized depressions in the floor.
mm,
And the place
so fun.
made my hair stand up. Like every time I
Oh,
had to walk through the shop, which was basically the center of the house on the first floor, whenever I had to walk through there at night by myself, my hair stood up.
hmm.
And
Yeah,
I
creepy.
never, yeah, I never really figured that out. But your father had a couple of ghost interactions there. My sister Moira had that one where she was home alone with my dog, and she heard somebody come in the door downstairs and then open the door at the bottom of the stairs. It was a hollow core, noisy door that made a certain sound, so you could identify that's the downstairs door. And
Hmm.
then she heard them walk up the stairs, which were uncarpeted, cheap wooden stairs. Cheap meaning they were loud. You could hear people clumping up the stairs. And then they got to the top door and stopped. And Moira sat there waiting for them to open the door. And Boss went over to the door, the dog, and he was sitting in front of the door wagging his tail. And nothing happened. And then about 10 minutes later, Rick and I came home. And the same sequence she heard, somebody open the door downstairs, walk up the stairs, but this time it was the two of us, and we opened the door and came in, and she was like white. Says, you wouldn't believe what just happened. Yeah, yeah, we probably would. And it was like that. I do know that a bunch of friends of mine, more than ghost stories, they have dreams that are a certain quality of dreams of deceased friends or family members. Like my sister
Hmm.
thinks, the hell was that? I think that was a German Shepherd sneeze. My
Oh, I
sister
had it
thinks
too.
she's been visited by my parents in her dreams.
Hmm.
And I haven't been visited by my parents in my dreams because they don't like me. No, I did have this one dream one time of well, actually I had maybe 4 or 5 dreams of that dog that I just mentioned,
Oh.
Boss. And in each one of them, I'd be walking down a street and he'd be coming toward me with somebody else or with some other dogs. And he would notice me, recognize me, come up to me, and then continue on with whoever he was
Oh,
with.
interesting.
So that same basic thing happened in each one of the dreams I had about him. And I had a similar dream to that to my really good friend who was killed in Vietnam. And it was a long, long time after he died, maybe 20 years later. One night, I had never had a dream about him. This one night, same kind of thing. He was walking towards me on a street like in the city or something, and he got up to where I was and he recognized me and smiled. He didn't say anything to me, but he
Hmm.
smiled. He was clearly happy and he just kept going.
Yeah.
And I woke up, I was like, I saw Carmine in a dream. It was just weird. And he smiled
Yeah.
like he was cool, like everything was cool.
Yeah.
And so that's happened to me a couple of times, but I think that's just dreaming, basically, when I hear
Hmm.
about that stuff. I think the ghost stories that people have are much more spiritual world based. You know what I mean?
So do
Like,
you think it's an imprint, like a shadow of what used to happen here?
well, the if you imagine that what we discussed before is actually true, that, and I'm pretty sure, I'll bet, this is the kind of thing that makes me wish I could live another 100 years, because I'll bet that they'll figure this out before then, that they'll actually be able to record information onto atomic structures and
Hmm.
retrieve that information and making it basically like atoms are hard drives. And if that's true, then let's say you die, right? And you decompose and you're buried, or actually for that matter, you could be cremated and it'll be the same thing. When you get cremated, it's not really obvious, but atoms from you will come up in the smoke and go right out the chimney. They're not burning up. Your body is burning up. The actual individual atoms, they just get separated. So when your body gets cremated, nothing happens to the atoms. They just get separated from the other atoms. They're still all there. So a lot of them will go up out the chimney. So I guess that is a way of dispersing you back into the environment. So let's imagine that that happens. Some people get cremated, right? Their atoms go up through the chimney. Now they're floating around in the air. You could, for whatever, breathe one of them in, or you know what I mean? Like for that
Hmm.
matter, you could just get it on your skin, and it might be, if it's true that atoms can record information, then it could also be true that they can, disseminate that information. Like every other atom is a reader, you know what I mean? So all they got to do
Hmm.
is go onto your skin. Now they're touching your atoms or whatever, and your atoms are able to access that. And that could be what spiritual experiences are, for all we know, that
Hmm.
you're accessing some, at least little parts of somebody else's life recording, because you breathed in one of the atoms that was in their body. Like you
Yeah.
can't, unless you're a chemist and you know about this stuff, it is pretty impossible to get your mind wrapped around how small atoms are.
Yeah.
There's trillions and trillions of them, meaning way, way more than the stars in the Milky Way galaxy, in a glass of water. A
Hmm.
single glass of water is trillions and trillions of atoms of water. And there's just so many of them. They're all over the place. They're so tiny. You could disseminate this stuff. So like let's back up a little bit. You get back into the science of the thing. If you imagine that the Earth is, let's say, the size of a beach ball, like 3 or 4 times the size of a basketball, you have to get this sizing right. And I don't know if my measurements are right, but it's somewhere around this. Like if the Earth were the size of a beach ball, like 2 feet or 3 feet in diameter, then there would be a shell on the outside of it that's about as thick as an eggshell. And that is the amount of stuff that's on the outside surface of the earth that pretty much every living thing you ever heard of is in that shell. The atoms from it are in there. They're not deep in the ball and they're not back out in outer space. They're mostly still in that shell right there. All the atoms from every dinosaur, from everything, from every single-celled organism that ever lived, they're all in this really, really thin shell on the surface of the earth. And it's like basically what that means is that we being all the living things on earth just keep reusing all the same atoms
Mm-hmm.
continually through time. So for millions, yeah, as you well know, you can drill down and get oil. Oil's made from dinosaurs and trees that were there when dinosaurs were walking around. That was a really, really long time ago. And that's it. That's the stuff. Those are atoms that were in their bodies or in those trees or whatever. And so it's all there. It's like all the experiences. If it's true that your experiences can get recorded into the atoms in your body, then all the experiences of everything that has ever lived are in that eggshell, on the outside surface of the earth.
Yeah, no,
And
that makes total sense to me, actually.
yeah, it so makes sense that if you want to like believe in science, it's actually I don't know like what the equation is, but it's somewhere near around the same difficulty for me to believe in all the stuff about science as it is to believe about God. You know what I mean? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, there was a Big Bang. What was that? That was an infinitesimally small point. That was way, way, way small. It was like the size of an atom compared to an atom, so infinitesimally small it could be described as nothing, and that blew up. And what happened? It created the entire universe. That's what the Big Bang is.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're going to believe that kind of stuff, like what's so hard about believing in God? I mean, that's a serious literal impossibility that that happened, but that's the way that they surmise that it happened. Who knows? They could be right, they could be totally wrong. Like they were totally wrong all through time about pretty much everything they postulated scientifically. It's all shifted to
Mm-hmm.
what it is now. Like the stuff
Yeah.
that they believed in 100 years ago, not the same as what they believe in now
Mm-hmm.
scientifically.
Mm-hmm.
So they're still just learning things. I just think they have a hard time admitting it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
What would it be? It's
I don't
it's
know.
kind of strange.
They can't
I mean,
control
I
it.
wouldn't even notice it so much if it wasn't Jeffrey, that like the guy that got me started into deeper spiritual thinking is the one that's so vehemently against it now. It's really funny. You can't make this stuff up.
Very interesting.
So
So does
all
that
this led
all
it can
relate?
sorry?
Oh, I was gonna ask if that's kind of the basis, the foundation of your belief in the afterlife, like you explained to me, your raindrop theory.
Yeah, that's if you take all the stuff that we've been talking about, it makes it
Mm-hmm.
much easier to access the concept behind my little raindrop theory is that
Yeah.
we are the raindrops. And the way that this gets explained is that imagine that the world is, let's imagine that it only rains right over the ocean so that it makes it really easy to explain this. Although it's true that all water heads back to the ocean. That's the reality of things. It's all trying to get back to the big pool of water that's over there. And all rivers go to oceans or you know, that's not really true, but it may as well be. So if you imagine that it rains over oceans, it's really easy to understand this equation, I guess you would call it. So during water's existence, it's in this ocean because it wants to gather together. It wants to go to the lowest point, like water seeks its own level, which is usually as far down as you can get. That's where it starts filling and everything in. And it ends up as a huge ocean of water, which is what we have on Earth. So it's all together in one thing, in one form. So all that water is water in the ocean, in quotation marks. And then during its cycle, it will, let's say, evaporate. So at that point, then all of the water is still in a huge compilation, a huge thing. I am losing my words, but a huge thing of water that's all still the same state as that water, that little speck that we're following here. And it was in the ocean, and now it's in basically a cloud of water that's dissolved in air, surrounded by the same thing water wise. It's all a cloud now of water, and then it gets up to a cloud that you can see in the sky. Now it's clouds you can see. That's the water, and it's all together with huge amounts of other water. Then it coalesces and forms a raindrop. So for the one time in the life cycle of water, it forms into a separate little bit of water, one drop. And that raindrop falls from the cloud and descends and then hits the ocean. So if you figure in this analogy, is it an analogy? I think so,
Yeah.
that we're the raindrop. So you're made up of water. As a raindrop, you're made up of water. That water was in an ocean, then it was in a cloud, then it was in a denser cloud, then it coalesced into different drops, a whole bunch of different raindrops, and they all fall down. And then at the bottom, which is now easy because I made it that way, the cloud was right over the ocean. At the bottom, it hits the ocean. So now the raindrop has fallen back in the ocean. Where is it? It's in there. I saw it fall in. Okay, can you get the pieces of it back? No. Can you put that raindrop back together to make the same raindrop? No. What are the odds that some atom from that raindrop will be in another raindrop? They're pretty high, you know. So at some point, some atom that was in that drop is going to go through that whole process again and end up being in another raindrop. So each raindrop is made up of, let's say, half atoms that have never been in a raindrop before, and the other half is all atoms that have been in raindrops before. Not the same one, but zillions of different raindrops. And now they're all in this raindrop, and that one goes through the cycle and falls down, hits the ocean. Now it's back in the ocean. Find the raindrop. Sorry, you can't find it. Put it back together. Sorry, you can't put it back together. Is it in there? It is most definitely in there, but not as the drop that it was. So you just keep going. Like for everything, you can't create and destroy matter. From dust you come, to dust you shall return. And all of these interwoven scientific and spiritual things, you can end up with this raindrop theory pretty easily. And it fits basically things from the religious world and things from the scientific world. And it pretty much easily describes the reality of what you as a living thing on earth have gone through in the process of becoming you. You have gathered, first, your mother ate a bunch of stuff, plants that grew in the earth, or animals that ate plants that grew in the earth. And then she birthed you, and then you started eating stuff which grew in the earth, or, whatever. And as your body becomes bigger, you're basically just adding more and more atoms into it, lots and lots of them to get bigger. And so you're made of stuff that came out of that thin shell on the outside of the earth, which is where all of the other stuff is that was ever in a living organism. It's in that shell. That's the stuff you're made of. So the odds of you having an atom in you from or a bunch of them from a bunch of different specific dinosaurs that maybe from millions and millions of years separated their lives, but the one atom from one of them 5 million years before the other one, and one atom from the second one, those two atoms are in you because they're still there. They don't go anywhere. You can't create or destroy them. You know, it's just the same stuff over and over again. Actually,
Yeah.
I became more aware of that when I was a younger person and heard that Joni Mitchell song for the first time, "We Are Stardust," which I had never thought of. And it is literally true. Everything that's in your body was made in a star, period. That's the scientific reality. So it's all just recycled stuff. So it's just put together in these different forms. The big question is, okay, that's now we've got that down. You're made of this stuff that's recycled. How do you make this stuff come alive? You know, you're alive because you were made by a living organism using some plans that they passed on in DNA. Who made this shit up? Are you kidding? Like how many hard drives of information would you need to actually describe everything that you need to describe in order to put together not just a human body, your human body that looks
Mhm.
like you and has all of your physical characteristics, meaning not just looks, but the way that you process milk, let's say, and whatever, all the things that make you you. Those instructions are in some microscopic, you can't see these things, strands of goo.
It's so extreme.
That's and the amount of instruction is ludicrously immense. Like how much instruction you need to become Jolene, who actually looks like her mother. You know what I mean? That's one of the things that freaks me out. Like I saw a picture of my mother's father. When I was 40, I saw this picture of him. He was 23. He was in boot camp in World War One, and it looked identical to me when I was 40,
So
which says
weird.
a lot about how
Yeah.
hard life was back then. But it was freaky. I mean, I'm looking at this picture like, oh my God, I look just like him. How do they do that?
How do
How
they
do you
do that?
encode
Who's
that
they?
information into goo that's
Yeah.
DNA and RNA? And what are you kidding? It's like, it's kind of like somebody made that stuff up. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're just making it up as they go along to try to
Yeah.
explain how this all
Uh
works. And
huh.
there is no DNA.
Who knows? I know what really exists. Like, have we seen it? I don't know. I've been thinking about, like how you said the law, what the law of physics, quantum physics. Like, we've not even scratched the tip of the surface, but that's a law. Yet alone, like
Yep.
let alone like I mean, but there's a germ theory that we understand way more than this physics, but we accept the germ theory more than this law of physics that's just so like it's all crazy all over the place.
Yeah. It's too much information.
So
Ah.
much. Let's just say if that little spiky ball is like really a virus. Like I don't
But
know.
I told you about my uncle so he was my mother's brother. He was 95 and living with me and Denise. And my mother had died like 6 months before. And so he was here and he went downhill pretty quickly. I just think it wasn't going the way that he wanted it to, and he just lost interest, basically. And at that point, he had what they said was a heart attack. I thought it was more like a stroke. I'm not really sure what happened, but he ended up
Mhm.
pretty debilitated like overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Denise had brought him down to his apartment to start packing stuff up. He had been living here for 6 months, and I think it was the concept of going back to his apartment for the first time that he was going to pack his stuff up and never go back there again. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it got to him. And starting that day, he went downhill and ended up in the hospital at on that day. And then they drove him back up to our house, and he went to this, not a hospice. I don't know what they call it. It wasn't a hospital, and it wasn't a hospice. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess a rehab or something.
Mm-hmm.
We went up there to see him. So we had asked him to transfer him up here. So they brought him up in an ambulance to that place. And when he got there, Denise and I got in the car and went over to see him. And we get there, and this nurse was feeding him yogurt. And I said, "Can I do that?" And she said, "Yes." So I got the yogurt and the spoon, and I'm feeding him yogurt. And he's talking very animatedly about he met this guy, and the guy took him up way up high, and they were looking down, and he had to move some ceiling panels out of the way. And then when he moved the ceiling panels, you could see down below. And he kept saying, "You wouldn't believe how much stuff is down there." He kept saying that phrase. That's a quote.
Mm-hmm.
And and then that kind of morphed into he was over a stage in a theater, and some guy was bringing him up there, and he was able to move some panels out of the way so they could see down. They were up like where some kind of mechanical workings were, which sounded maybe like theater lights or something, and they could see down below. And the same thing. It was like, "You wouldn't believe how much stuff is." So he's in the middle of telling me about this, and Denise and I are looking at each other, and suddenly he turns around away from me and he goes, "Catherine, you want some of this?" That's his dead wife, who's been dead for 15 years. And
Mm-hmm.
he goes, "No, it's yogurt, strawberry. No, it's really good. You sure? Okay." And he turns back around and he says she doesn't want any. And Denise
Yeah.
and I are looking at each other like, okay. And then he started talking about my mother, who's now been dead for 6 months, and she's in the next room. And he
Mm-hmm.
was just talking to her.
Yeah.
And we keep looking at each other like, okay, this is way too real. He's just talking
Mm-hmm.
about it casually, like, "Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was just talking to Pat. She's right there in the next room."
Yeah.
And it was just really freaky. And he died a few days after that. He was like very close. And it was very real. Like it
It
didn't at all seem
is.
like some kind of hallucination or daydream or
I
anything like
know.
that.
Yeah, we call them hallucinations, but that's super common. That's like one of the signs we see, especially in the final week to days. People are, reaching out, they're seeing family members who have passed on, and it's just like, is that a coincidence? Is that a hallucination? Really, everybody has the same hallucination of seeing their family members. I think it's their
Yeah.
welcome committee.
Well, it could be
Or
because
they're
they
just
might have
in this like
heard somebody.
mesh world. Yeah. Like in
It's
between two worlds still.
yeah, or it could be what they want to
Mhm.
to happen, or even at that
Mhm.
level, it's like your mind is making. If it is that,
Mhm.
then it's your mind making this so completely real that
Yeah.
it's there to actually do. Like it's as if it's programmed into human brains to do that. If it's
Mhm.
not a real thing happening, then it's
Mhm.
really programmed into human brains to do it because so many people have that same thing. That's kind of like, what was that? There's a book by Carl Jung. I can't remember the name of it. And it talks about universal dreams. And it had examples of them. And I had no idea of this. There's a universal dream that women all around the world from all these different countries, continents, different races, tribal things, people that have never ever seen a television or heard a radio or spoken to anyone outside their village. It's a universal dream of women birthing snakes. right?
Mm,
And so,
weird.
how is it that this dream got into all these different women's heads that have never heard of it and never spoken to
Yeah.
each other?
Well, the atoms are in the land.
Big time. I mean, that's freaky. And that wasn't the only one. That's just the one that stuck out in my mind because it's
Yeah.
just really weird. Birthing snakes, but it's a
I've never had that
universal,
dream.
it's freaky. But you can look that up. Carl Jung,
Ooh.
C.G. Jung. It's one of his books, and it's got a bunch of stuff like that in it. But that's a kind of easy to access example of there's something there that we're not in control of and don't understand and don't have tools to, what's the word, dissect it, don't have tools to understand it. Like I said, math is the way that we understand the physical world, and there's no meters that you can measure it with, and there's
Mm-hmm.
no stuff. There's no thing that makes it possible for scientists or people of that ilk to work with it or to learn more about it or something. So the easiest thing for them to do is just say, well, then it doesn't exist. Like,
Hmm.
if I don't understand it, it must not exist.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm trying to relate that to like subjective symptoms that we look for. So, like pain, like we're forcing people to describe their pain and to fit it into a little box so that we can understand it. And I think that's probably what's going on with spiritualism. Like what's your pain level on a scale of 1 to 10? What 100? Like nobody's gonna
I
stick inside
I
that
never quite
box.
got that. Yeah, it's like, well, who made this scale up? What are you guys talking
I
about?
don't know. I want to describe it. Like, is it sharp or burning? People are like, I don't know. It just hurts. But maybe I'm like, at the same time, I'm looking for signs of pain, and my number is different than the number that they're telling me. So, like, who's right? What's the
Yeah.
truth? Like,
That's the way that I'd look at that particular thing. Is pretty
yeah.
funny that, like, anyone who's never had an infringement on a nerve, like a bulging disc or something,
Mhm.
either that or having your tooth drilled all the way down to the nerve with no Novocaine, those two things feel exactly the
Mhm.
same. The
Mhm.
difference is when you get your tooth drilled to the nerve, you're getting this pain. You can't believe the pain. It's way past 10. You know what I mean? It's on a scale of
Mhm.
1 to 10. No, it's not,
Mhm.
because it makes your body freeze up. You literally can't do anything because it's so ludicrously painful. And when you have it drilled in your tooth, you can tell that it's the size of a
Mhm.
dentist drill tip, which is
Mhm.
tiny, tiny little thing. When it happens in your spine, you can tell that it's the size of a
Oh.
nickel. And it's like,
Yeah.
but trying to describe that to somebody, well, especially somebody who's never had a tooth drilled down to the nerve without Novocaine. I had that done when I was a kid, and I know what that
Duh.
feels like. And it's like pain. Good God, that's actually a good example of something that's not accessible. Like, they don't really have any tools the same way. Maybe that's what you were just saying, and I missed the point of it. Was
Yeah,
that
yeah. Well,
there's no way for them to measure that.
yeah,
They're relying on people's descriptions or
yeah. There's still not, but we're accepting that. So maybe 50 years in the future, we'll expect accept spirituality. Who
yeah, or
knows?
somebody. Yeah, well, actually, that's a good point. Like, why would they? Well, you got to believe in pain. If you have
But
it, it's not something that's questionable.
the
But
same with spirituality. If you have it, you have no question.
right, and there's no way for them to measure that, though. So why
Hmm.
is it that scientists believe in pain at all? That I think that a lot of
Hmm.
them have a hard time believing in pain. But they do believe it's real,
Hmm.
and that's a good point. That's a good thing to compare these what's the ethereal items
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
pain levels or spiritual existence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We can't see non-tangible items.
non-tangible. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
There we go.
Always
Yeah.
look to people who have a dictionary.
Yeah. Oh, Stephen, you are so smart.
That's what Denise is always telling me. And
Yeah.
I tell her, no, actually, I just pretend, and people believe me.
I pretend to
But
know how to have a podcast.
did you ever hear that song I sent you, the Infinity one?
No, I don't know. I don't think so. I read your brother's story and that whole thing. I don't know if I got to listen to the song. I might have bypassed that.
I think I emailed it. Yeah, listen to that.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
basically the raindrop theory, putting it into song form.
Yes. Okay. Can I
That
share it with all
we're
my
just
listeners?
here. Yeah. Turn them all onto it.
Yes. All right. Cool. Well, let's see. I don't want your brother to go without getting talked about. So can we wrap up by talking about him? You shared this wonderful story and you said you're not a writer, you don't know where it came from. It was some kind of just plopped in your brain or
Oh
not your
yeah.
brain, your whole
That's
goo.
the concept of Terry. Well, I don't actually believe per se in heaven and hell being something that you go to after here. After thinking about it for a long time, personally, I think that they have the right idea in religions. They just don't have the sequence set up correctly. And by that, I mean that it makes much more sense scientifically that this is the heaven or hell that they're talking about here, living
Mhm,
here on Earth.
mhm, mhm,
Because after this, you're just atoms again. Your body is dispersed and all of your atoms go out there with, if it's really true, they go out there with the recording of your life in them and they take it back with them to the universe to add that information into the pile of information that makes up all of the information in the universe. And that's something that Jeff told me way in one of our first conversations in
mhm.
1970 is that we're all antennas. No one ever invents anything. You just discover things. And he said, we're
Yeah,
all
yeah.
antennas. We're tuned to different lengths and
Mhm.
wavelengths, and we pick up different things. But like whoever, like Thomas Edison theoretically invented the light bulb, all he did was discover that, okay, this is the stuff that doesn't burn up into nothing when you're passing electricity through it. It'll stay there in the bulb and keep making light. And it was tungsten. And that's how light bulbs came about. But the fact is that it always had to work that way because it works that way. That's, you know what I mean? The science behind it works that way. And Thomas Edison discovered that. So that was Jeffrey's point. And it was, it's, I don't know. I don't know how I got into that point, but
No, I'm not sure either. I was asking about your story from Terry, how it came to you, and you're not.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I really don't know how I got into that point, but yeah, well, that's one of those things where if you accept that heaven and hell is something that happens after this, then that's what that was a picture of. It's like that would
Mm,
have been Terry's, I think, his desire for what heaven would be. But he wasn't the type of person that had any beliefs about heaven or anything. So we never talked about anything like that.
mhm,
Uh, I don't know what his beliefs were about it, but
mhm.
if that's the way that it worked, that would have been heaven for Terry to every day. This, as the story goes, it starts
Yeah.
out where I think the first line in the story is Terry looked up, and then it describes what he saw when he looked up. He's looking at
Mhm.
this river, and the sun is sparkling off it, and the clouds in the sky, and it's a beautiful, beautiful, perfect day. And the river is this
Mhm.
perfect blue color, and the water feels great. He's standing in the water, and he looks down, and it's like the whole sand under the water and the beach and everything is made of gold dust. And he's like, wow, this is, and it feels really nice and everything. And then some guy comes along, and I can't remember the sequence off the top of my head, but like he gives him a towel, I think, or
Yeah.
offers him some water to drink or something.
Mhm.
And you get the picture as you're reading the thing that the guy is Saint Peter,
Mhm.
and he happens to be a fan of Terry. Terry was like this world famous swim coach. You can't make this stuff up. A world famous what? It's like, because he didn't do Olympics or anything like that. He was just some guy who was into swimming who had this concept of like what swimming is, this spiritual thing, and how you're supposed to approach it. And it definitely touched a nerve in a lot of people. And he became
Mhm.
very famous among swimming freaks. I didn't know that there were that many people that were that far into swimming, but that was it. And all he ever wanted to do was go swimming. And that's not an
Mhm.
exaggeration. Um,
Mhm.
the only way that he could successfully, nah, I won't say the only way, but one of the only ways that you could successfully engage him in a conversation that he would be into would be to talk about swimming. And that's how far it went with him.
Yeah.
I only noticed that because I went out with him once on his birthday, because his wife put together this little thing for a few of Terry and me and a few of his friends to go out on his birthday. And there was four of us, and the three of us, not Terry, is sitting watching us basically talking and having fun. And he's just
Yeah.
sitting there until
Oh.
one of the guys started to talk to him about swimming. He came alive.
Oh
And he
my
spent the whole
goodness.
rest of the night talking to that one guy about swimming
Yeah.
and like animated. And, before that, he was just like
Oh.
sitting there, like, so he was way, way into it. And he would go
Yeah.
swimming every day. He would either go
Mhm.
swimming in a pool or a lake
Mhm.
or a river or whatever.
Mhm.
And every day when he came back from swimming, somebody would say, how is your swim? And he would always say, it's the best swim I ever had.
Oh my gosh. So he
Yeah.
basically like found heaven on earth for himself.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
So that was it. So the
Hmm.
what the story ends up being, it's like a circular thing. So it starts out with him standing on a beach, and he looks up, and then he has a conversation with this guy, and then the guy says, you can take a swim in that, and he goes for a swim, and then swims to the other side and gets out, and he's standing there, and then the same exact thing happens. The same guy comes up behind him, but Terry has no memory of that. It's just some guy coming up to him, and it's just a repetition of the same thing over and over and over again. It's the river
Yeah.
Styx, and
Hmm.
which is the river that Egyptians crossed to get to the other side after they died.
Oh,
And
cool.
the waters of Lethe, I think that's Greek. It might also be
Hmm.
Egyptian. That was the waters of life.
Hmm.
And that was the name of the drinking water. The guy handed him on the bottle, and
Oh
Terry
my
was
God.
very well read and very smart, and
Hmm.
he knew about all details of all that kind of stuff. So if somebody handed him a bottle of water that said the water of Lethe, he would go, "Okay, this is pretty funny," because he would understand and get it. And that's what happens in the
Yeah.
dream. It's like that's pretty. That's like a Steely Dan
Oh.
song. So then he goes for another swim, and he realizes during the swim that he is literally the same exact stuff as the water. Like he's watching himself swimming, and he realizes as he puts his arm into the water that it's not his arm. It's the same shape as his arm. He can see the outline, but it's water. It's the same exact thing as what he's swimming through. He's
Bro,
made out of it.
crazy.
Yeah, and he gets
Yeah.
to the other side and he gets back out, and then the same thing happens again. And
Hmm.
it would be the perfect thing for him if heaven exists after this, then that would be Terry's heaven. to just spend
Yeah.
every moment of the rest of eternity swimming back and forth across that perfect river.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's
kind of
cool.
nice that he's one of those people that you could actually write something like that about, because if
Hmm.
somebody wanted to write something along those lines about me, what are they gonna? It's like, what does Steve want to do every minute of every day? I don't know. There's like 9,000 different things. What are you talking about? So he was a more simple person that he
Yeah.
gotta
He
love it.
sounds amazing. Glad you got that story, and I thank you for sharing it with me.
Oh, you are so welcome.
You're special.
It's special. Yeah, I really think you should have your father on this show.
I am trying. He's like, I don't have anything to talk about.
Really? He is
Yeah.
the guy. Like, he had more ghost things happen to him, and for my money, they were real. He was really experiencing this stuff really happened as
Yeah.
far as
Well,
he was concerned.
after you told me that, I was like, Dad, you do have something to talk about. Everybody says you're the ghost guy. And then he was like following me around the house, telling me all these stories and couldn't stop because
Oh,
like that
really?
triggered something in his mind. Yeah. But I was like, stop, I don't hear them. I need to record this.
Yeah,
So
well,
yes,
actually,
I
I guess he
do.
wouldn't be adverse to sitting down and doing it, because
No.
he would make a really interesting show. That's for sure.
I know. I know. I need him to come on.
I think he attracted that stuff. Like, you could say he was some kind of medium or something, because, it was happening to him in, let's say, that house in Cold Spring Harbor. We were all in the house. And like I
Hmm.
say, if every time I
Hmm.
walked through the shop downstairs, my hair would stand up. But
Hmm.
I didn't have those other experiences like he did. But something was
Yeah.
going on. If you ask me, there aren't many
Ah.
places that every time I walked through them, my hair stood up. As a matter of fact, that's
Mm,
the only
oh.
place in my life that ever happened. So,
Crazy, huh? I know he
yeah,
does. I know. I have to get him on. I'm really excited for that. um,
I'll
I
I'll
never.
work on them for you.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that. Yeah, tell me how fun I am to interview with. So fun. You had to come back for more.
You know that girl, Jolene, your daughter.
Is she from that podcast? Yeah. I had a ghost story. It's super simple. I don't really see ghosts or feel ghosts. I'm like pretty earthbound person, but isn't that funny and ironic? I do look for signs, but the other day I came down to the studio. So he has this studio. It's all, soundproofed and blacked out. When I opened the door, there was like a white, like it looked like smoke, like a white cloud, and went like slowly. It didn't
Really?
dissipate. It went off to the side, like towards the studio where I was coming, and the dog was following me, and he was like, "Rrr," like kind of weird, just like excited. Like I'm like, this is a pitch black room. What's exciting,
Yeah, and there was no cloud of gas. Like, you turned the light on, there was no cloud in the room, right?
Right. And like if it's smoke or something, it would come toward you when you open, It was just
Or it would still be there if when you
yeah.
turn the light on.
Guess what? Later that night, mom texted me this huge, long, super long, crazy message about how she vividly was like, she was laying on the couch or whatever. She's like, I was awake. I was laying on the couch and vividly saw her mom, grandma, standing over her, smiling, looking really good, feeling like she just felt like this immense, like grandma's doing good and she thinks I'm doing good, kind of like just this calming sensation. And mom's
Yeah.
not like that either. She's kind of skeptical, And she was so, I thought she was joking. I was like, did dad tell you I saw smoke? And she was like, no, I'm very shooken up. She was so sincere. And I was like, that is so weird because there's no like, this is a new house, nothing's
Yeah.
happened here. This
But
is not
was
like,
Rick in the house?
he was, I don't know. he might have got home after, and or he was upstairs and was like, "Hey, your music room just had a little thing in it." Yeah, it was so weird. It was so cool though.
Because if he is like it seems that he is, like he would be one of
Yeah,
those, like a magnet, basically,
yeah.
So like he's
Oh, for
magnetic
sure.
to this kind of stuff. If you're
Yeah,
nearby, you know what I mean? It's got like
yeah.
I don't know if my hair would have stood up in that house if he didn't live there.
Hey, thanks for listening. Before you go, if you'd like more episodes, behind the scenes updates, and a growing library of comforting resources, please join me at patreon.com/deathismylife. Your support helps this podcast grow and reach more people who need it. And if this episode resonated with you, please share the podcast with someone who might find comfort in it too. I'll see you there. This episode is brought to you by Havern Cabinetry and Design, a family business built on more than 50 years of master craftsmanship. Since 1972, owner Rick Havern has delivered immaculate, custom-built cabinetry and countertops for projects of every scale, from luxury homes to hotels, hospitals, and retail environments. Whether you're renovating a home or outfitting an entire building, their work will exceed your expectations. Learn more or request a quote at haverncabinetry.com. Link in the show notes.